Good morning, all. Good to see you all here this morning. I have a priest friend who is a very extreme introvert. And Matthew 5:1, the opening line for the gospel today, is his favorite line from the gospel because he's convinced it shows that Jesus himself is a true introvert. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. It's like, I love that line. But let's be clear, it is not because Jesus is afraid of crowds that he went up the mountain. So why did he? Just as Moses went up the mountain to receive the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, the way to live in relationship with God, Jesus is the new Moses. There's the Old Testament, and there's the New. And Jesus is the fulfillment of everything that was promised. So just like how Moses went up the mountain, Jesus went up the mountain. It wasn't with the Decalogue. He builds on that. But because he's the new Moses and the New Testament, closeness to the heart of God, he teaches us the heart of God, which is the Beatitudes. And have any of you been on the Vatican website before? I think it needs some work, personally. It's kind of clumsy. But have any of you read a church document, a Vatican document ever in your life? Have any of you ever done that? Okay, a few more hands. We need a few more hands, okay? You should read what the church is teaching. But sometimes all the documents of the church, of the Vatican, they all have like Latin titles, Lumen Gentium, Gaudium et Spes. Like, what is that up with it? Well, the Latin is the language of the church, but the titles of every Vatican or ecclesial document are always chosen from the very first words of the document. That's how the title comes about. So like, Gaudium et Spes just means joy and hope, because those are the first words of the document. Joy and hope. Lumen Gentium, light for the nations. That's how the document starts. And in the same way, that's how the Beatitudes are named. It's the very first word that Jesus uses. Blessed. In other words, Jesus as the new Moses, having ascended the mountain, not because he's a serious introvert, but he is inviting us to the heart of God. And the heart of God, the way is happiness. Blessed. The Greek word is makarios, which just means bliss, utter satisfaction. Why should I be Christian? Well, because I believe Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Yes. And Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life is the way to blessedness, to the life of God. Everyone. Thomas Aquinas built his whole Summa Theologia on the same reality that Aristotle talked about. Everyone is craving for happiness. That's what the human heart is longing for. We're always kind of like scurrying around and looking for it and trying this and trying that. Jesus is the way to the reason for which we were made. And that's why the Beatitudes are such an important beginning to the Sermon on the Mount. So, I just want to cover 3 fairly quickly. I can't cover all 8 or 9 because you would be angry with me. But I want to just talk about poverty, purity, and persecuted. I decided to take the first, the middle, and the last, and they just so happen to begin with P's. Again, all under Jesus as the new Moses, disclosing the way to the heart of God and the way to happiness. Let this sink in. Let that sink in. Like this whole week, we've been scurrying around left, right, and center for things that will make us happy. Yes, duties and all that. But we're doing them because we think in some way that it'll facilitate our happiness. Look no further than the Beatitudes. The first is the poor in spirit. And there's a lot of like different things we could say about each one. Like at the end of the day, sometimes I'm still reading the Beatitudes. I'm like, Lord, I've been studying these my whole life. Like, what do these mean? There's ever new layers to understand. But I just want to highlight, sometimes I think a lot of athletics, A lot of us have played sports in life. do you know the number one thing that every coach most wants from their players? Coachable people. Poverty of spirit. There's actually a little acronym for like here in the church, we kind of use this acronym. Like what we most want from students and from people that are like learning to come close to Christ is we need fat people. Faithful, available, and teachable. To be poor in spirit means to be teachable, which means to be malleable. It's a term of like working with clay. The worst thing any coach, like all these coaches, like you might have the most talented person come in and they're a D1 athlete or whatever, but if they're super full of pride and they won't take direction about how to align their skill and their power to an end and under the direction of a coach, they're not coachable. And so too, for someone who's coming to the life of happiness when they think, well, I can kind of make up my own way. To be poor in spirit, sometimes we even get kind of too technical, too quick. Sometimes as a priest, I'm like, does it mean I should give 11% of my income or 10%? Lord, does being poor means I should live under a bridge? And we get too technical, especially with material things first. And like, yes, there are many things we could understand about that, but let's not miss the forest for the trees. To be poor in spirit, the way to God is to be malleable clay in his hands. I am available to God's direction in my life. This was one of the first times that I heard God distinctly speak to me in my life. I was in my early 20s. I wasn't even praying, but I heard this phrase, and it was a question. It was in my soul, and it was so like it was an impression in my mind, but it wasn't from my mind. And it was just simply this question: Jake, are you available to me? I was like, huh. And it changed my perspective on like, yeah, it's not just going to Mass on Sundays. That's 1 hour out of 7 24-hour periods. And the rest of them, I was just kind of like doing my own thing. To be a disciple means to be available, teachable, malleable with my life, resources. It means to become dependent on God, not independent. So that's the first kind of question. How available, how malleable really are you in your relationship with God? Sometimes we don't know that until you start reading the Word of God. And you're like, whoa, I don't like that. I'm not sure. Let me just close this. Oh, this is the way to happiness, is beginning to become humble enough to receive direction. So that's the first. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Second, I just want to highlight is blessed are the pure of heart. Now again, sometimes we get too technical too quick. Too technical would be like, at the end of the day, if you want to be pure, just don't watch porn, okay? While that is true, it's not false, we're getting too technical too quick. God is more than just, don't do that. Don't be unfaithful in your marriage, okay? It's far more than that. To be pure of heart, like when the mystics, and I know certain people who have had visions of Jesus. I haven't. But I know people that have seen Jesus. I've met little children that have seen Jesus. And I've just noticed that among all the different things they say, they always seem to say the same thing when it comes to one detail: his eyes. People who have seen Jesus, who kind of mystically had a vision, Catherine of Siena, all these saints and mystics, they speak about Jesus' eyes. They're full of light. They're like not like a light that you've ever experienced on earth. It's so pure. It's like 1,000 diamonds. It's like every sun, but you can look at it, and it's so peaceful. And there's not anything brackish. There's not anything. It's so good. God is so pure of heart. To be pure of heart means to, Søren Kierkegaard, the great Danish philosopher, said, all the saints basically are those that pursue one thing: oneness, cohesiveness in my life, I am truly a seeker of God. Have any of you heard monks and people that live in monasteries? Monastery comes from the Greek word monos. Like if you're a fisherman, you have 8-pound test, it's monofilament. Anyways, more detail than you wanted to know. But it just means one. That's all mono means. Monastery is literally those that go to seek one thing. God. The only thing necessary. Or in Jesus' words to Mary sitting at his feet, remember Martha scurrying around the kitchen? Busy, frantic, hurried. And Jesus said, Mary has chosen the better part, the one thing necessary, and it will not be taken from her. Those who are pure of heart, it's not just don't watch porn. It is far more than that. It's to begin to desire the one thing in every facet of life. That takes some time. That's why becoming a disciple is not an overnight thing. To be pure of heart means to take on the way that Jesus sees in his eyes. He's so pure. Would you really say that of all the things you're scurrying around for in your life, that Jesus Christ in the life of heaven is the one thing that you are after? Let's be really honest with ourselves. And if we're just a couple clicks away, don't worry. Can we bring our heart back? That is becoming more pure of heart. Okay, Jesus is the way to the life of the blessed, poor, available, I am malleable, pure, to desire one thing, finally to be persecuted. This is the last of the Beatitudes. St. Thomas Aquinas ordered the Beatitudes in a hierarchy. He said it starts with 1 through 3, that's like the life of putting away sin. The life of 4 through 6 is the life of becoming enlightened. The life of, I've now begun to put away more sin and I've begun to become moved by grace to be enlightened. And the last few, he says, is the unitive way, which is interesting. The greatest test of what we love is indexed to the suffering we're willing to endure. Let me say that again. The way we know what we truly love is indexed or somewhat proportionate to the kind of suffering we're willing to endure for that thing. Talk about marriage, many hundreds of couples have stood right here and faced each other, sometimes looking at me. I'm like, don't look at me, look at them. You're not making your vows to me. Usually it's the man who's like, I take you. I'm like, please don't. Look at her, look at him. And they say, I take you for better or worse, sickness and in health. All these are things that I am willing to suffer whatever it takes for my yes. That is how we know what love really means. What I'm willing to suffer. And in the early church, the only way we knew who a saint was in the first centuries were martyrs. Let that sink in. The only way, in the early church, we ever knew, who are the holy ones? Oh, the ones that died for him. The ones that bled. I don't know about you, but when I was when I was 15, I got confirmed. 16, actually. And the thing I had to do to get confirmed was service hours. Any of you have this? All right, I got to start serving Mass because I need some service hours, As if my love for God was proportionate to my service hours. I need 40 service hours. To love God is the willingness to suffer. And all of these three things and all of the Beatitudes are portraits of who Jesus is. He's poor. He's malleable to the Father's will. He says, I do nothing on my own. I only do what the Father tells me. Shocking. That's who Jesus is. Jesus is pure. I already spoke of that. His eyes. There's nothing filthy in him. And Jesus himself, what is central to our worship of God is his willingness to suffer for you. Let that sink in. What is my willingness to suffer for him? Sometimes, especially for college students, to be honest, it's kind of humbling when I've heard from many students, and sometimes myself in my life too, when you're in a public place, praying over your meal and doing this is a suffering. Many people are afraid to even make the sign of the cross over a meal because, like, people might be seeing me. What do people think? What will my roommates say? They don't even know I'm a Christian. Oh, the life of happiness will always be quite elusive if I'm sidestepping poverty of spirit. Purity for later. Persecution? No thanks. And to be honest, this is the last thing, this is where I get a little heated, perhaps even the Catholic Church from her highest orders and could grow in conversion to this last beatitude. Is it not the case that sometimes when Christians have bled, there's Christians that have many hundreds that have been put to death this year in Nigeria? And sometimes the church is like, this is an absolute travesty. Don't let that happen. I'm like, well, what does the beatitude say? Please don't hurt us. I think, honestly, like, it's not like I'm willing to walk into fire purposely. Like, I want more pain. The church should want more pain. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes I think even the church needs some conversion on this. Those who have bled for Christ, it is a matter, if they stayed with him, it is a matter of rejoicing, because that's what the Beatitude says. Oh, we're all in need of a little bit of conversion. Those who have bled for Christ, stayed faithful, why should I mourn that as if that should never have happened? Because Jesus, that is the crowning jewel of his life and of every martyr. And again, it's not like I'm saying, we want more pain, just stub your toe more often. No. But the index to our love is proportionate often to the suffering I'm willing to endure. And Jesus has all of these. So however this finds us today, we're willing to take little steps into these great doorways. Each of them are like consecutive doorways into the happiness of the heart of Jesus. Amen?